welcome to the Harold DuLong Memorial Luncheon, where 100% of the proceeds from this event go directly to graduating seniors from Burlington High School, all due in part, in no small part, to the generosity of Londana, who provides this meal for free. So let's give Londana and Shannon St. Pierre a big hand. Shannon actually also just completed her first Boston Marathon this year and raised a lot of money for a great cause. Thank you, Shannon. Let me just quickly go over and mention a couple of the folks that are joining us today. And please hold the applause to the end, and we'll get right through this. But if you could just stand up when I call your name. Excuse me. We can do the wave. Yes, the wave will be good. State Representative Ken Gordon. We have a new chairperson, our selectman, Chris Hartling. With him at his table today, we have John Sanchez, who is the director of DPW. We also have Paul Sagarino, assistant town administrator. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Marge McDonald, who always comes to all of our events, the director of Council on Aging. We have the mayor of Burlington and retired selectman Al Fay. We also have retired selectman Sonia Rollins. Let me see if I've missed. Oh, Judy Burke, the dean of corporate and community education with Middlesex Community College. And from the Burlington High School, we have, who we got today? We got Joe Adebato and Mark Sullivan. Thank you for coming. Now we can have a little hand for all of them. We do see most of you on a regular basis. You might see some new faces in here. Please get to know the people that are here. These are members of the business community and in Burlington area that really give back to the community. In participating today, you're helping graduating seniors, but you're also showing your commitment to the community, and we appreciate it more than you can know. I want to just run down quickly, and this time I will ask you to stand up, because these are the people that deal with me day after day and really represent what's going on behind the scenes at the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce. These are our directors. From National Development and the District Burlington, we have Andrew Gallinaro. Andrew. Armin Bassi with Merrill Lynch. Bob Buckley with Reamer and Bronstein. Diane Currier with Oracle. Kelly Pappas with Foster Sullivan Insurance. Lisa Healy with Paychex. Michelle Snyder with Leahy. Ray Graber from Graber Associates. Scott Weiss from Gutierrez Company. Sonia Rollins from Exit Premier Real Estate. And Stephanie Cronin from the Middlesex 3 Coalition. Let's have a hand at these people. They put up with me all the time. For those of you that did not know Harold, I had the pleasure of meeting him, but really didn't know much about Harold. But I cannot tell you that there's not a week go by or a day go by that I don't hear a mention of his name or see some of the works that he's done to the greater Burlington area. One of the things he has left behind is the constant caring and giving that we see in the business community, and it's also reflected in his family. And with that, I'd like to introduce Anne Marie Comer to come up and say a word. This is Harold's sister.
Thank you, everyone. I just can't believe it's been 13 years since Harold's departure. I lost a terrific brother. His family lost a great dad and husband. And Burlington lost a native son that really considered Burlington his home. So, it's great to see you all here today. I look around and I see faces of people that worked with Harold for many years and on many projects, all for the good of Burlington. He was the master introducer. He would get people involved in projects, even if they didn't want to get involved in projects. He would get them together, always for the benefit of the town. He enjoyed the the work that he did. I mean, in fact, his ability to get people together created the first Burlington Business Roundtable. When was that? Back in the 90s or
83.
in the early 90s?
Yeah, 83.
Yeah, and so which evolved into what we have today as the Burlington Area Chamber. So he certainly was involved and loved this, and he'd be so excited today to see the Third Ave projects, the district, aka New England Executive Park, and also the development that's going on where on Cambridge Street, which is the new and the oldest among us remember it's the old IGA, but the Building 19 site. So that he would be so excited. But his true passion was knowledge. He was an avid reader. He loved the pursuit of knowledge and really was a proponent of education. And your attendance here today really supports his passion and allows students to get that one step closer to their educational goal. Harold himself, for those of you who didn't know who he was, he moved here at the age of 12. He attended Center School, the Union School, which are now the Senior Center and the Rec Center, the police station. He went to Burlington High, graduated in 1958. He went on to BU, and then ultimately graduated from BC Law. And his first real, and Bob, you can attest to this, his first real firm prior to Riemer Braunstein was with Charlie Shea and Tom Murphy at the Shea Murphy on Center Street. So he didn't move too far out of town. And then in the early 70s, he became involved with Riemer Braunstein, opened up the office in Burlington in 72 or so, 72, 73. And the rest, they say, is history. For those of you who didn't have a chance to know Harold, I'm sorry you didn't. He was a great guy. He was a dedicated family man, a great friend. He told bad jokes, oftentimes inappropriate. But he was a good family member, a good family friend, and also a friend who would give the shirt off his back and really lend a hand to those who needed it without expectation of any reciprocity or fanfare. So he really was a true man who just left us a little bit too early. I want to thank the Burlington Area Chamber for continuing in his tradition and having everybody here. Londana's for a wonderful spread. Harold was a foodie too, so he would love to be here enjoying this food. For each of you that come and give of your time to support the scholarship and to keep the legacy alive. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. In the spirit of giving, Harold coached some of my mentors, and it's been passed down to me. The Chamber's Charitable Foundation has now gone a little bit further than just being about scholarships. We've created the Chamber's Charitable Partnership Program with several local charities so that we can have that opportunity through your generous donations and participation to be able to really make a difference in some of the lives of people in the greater Burlington area, and we thank you. And that comes from the leadership of Harold down through the board, and it will continue. We do make a commitment to the greater Burlington area to not only help provide the economic vitality of the area, but to also remember to give back. And that's a big part of what we're doing here today, and we will continue to do. Now that Harold has moved on from us, we're reminded on a daily basis by the folks over at Riemer Braunstein exactly what Harold meant to us. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Bob Buckley from Riemer Braunstein.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to make it quick. Harold would be upset with the Anne Marie. Because Harold used to always say, no one knows that Anne Marie's my sister.
I should have said that on Anne Marie.
Right. But for years, Anne Marie was on town meeting, and I'd say, well, people must know that Anne Marie's here. He said, no one knows she's my sister. So keep it quiet.
17 years.
Yeah, that's right. But First of all, because I generally forget to do this, two things every year. First, on behalf of the Burlington office, which is sitting to my left, and the talent we have there, we'd like to make a donation to the scholarship of $10,000 in Harold's memory. There have been years I've gotten in my car and driven away and said, forgot to do that, right. But it's our honor to do so. And second, I know Joe and Mark from the high school are here. Could the two of you stand up? Because I'd like a round of applause, because I have to say, we deal with, this is going to be a surprise, we deal with a lot of other communities besides Burlington, and are constantly involved with some of the activities, and dealing with the Burlington High School staff on this function and their concern for the students and what they do is truly phenomenal. And it's a great pleasure for us to give back to the school, because they are passionate about what they do. They're constantly calling with ideas, and it's a pleasure to be able to work with them to see the students move on, because that is Harold's legacy. Harold, as Anne Marie said, was very committed to education, because he saw that as the key to get out of wherever you are. Whatever trouble you get into, wherever you want to go, education was the foundation. So those are the two things I wanted to say, except one. I know Sonia's going to introduce Bill, our speaker. And I don't think Sonia knows this, but I know it, and I want Bill to talk about it when he gets up here. He was one heck of a basketball player. So he can tell us all he wants about his children. He should be very proud, but I want to hear about his basketball ability. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I can honestly say that the tradition of generosity and caring for the community emanates through Bob and the folks at Reamer and Bronstein. And to this day, they're at the forefront of everything that we're doing to try to make this area attractive to both business and the residential community. And we owe them a great deal of gratitude. So let's give Reamer and Bronstein a big hand. All right, this next person needs no introduction, although I'll give it to her anyway. Affectionately known as the straw that stirs the drink in the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce, Sonia Rollins from Exit Premier Realty.
They're taller than me, and it all depends on what kind of drink we're stirring on some days. Good afternoon, everybody. I think you've heard a lot of introductions, and I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. But before I do, I think I say this every year. I'll say it again just to be sure that we're all clear. This is one of my favorite events of the year for a number of reasons. First of all, we all love doing charitable events, and we just came off of a great black tie, of course, for the Charitable Foundation. But what amazes me every time is that every time we call out to the business community to raise money for a good cause in Burlington, we fill a room, which speaks in volumes for not only the residential base in Burlington, but it speaks in volumes for the business community. So on behalf of a resident, and there are some of us in this room, I want to thank the business community for always stepping up. I will tell you that I can't believe it's been 13 years, you're right, Anne-Marie, but it is also remarkable to me that 13 years after someone's passing, they can still bring out emotion to people. You know, that you can still shed a tear when you think about Harold. You can still giggle when you think about some of the things Harold's done and said in different spots. And it's always remarkable to me that we can fill a room not just for the Scholarship Foundation. Some of us are here for the good fortune of that. Some of us are here because we wouldn't miss a luncheon that had Harold's name on it. You know, you're here for so many reasons, but 13 years later, if you can fill a room, he is smiling from above. I have no question on that, because he always loved that. He loved to have people around and seeing that. The quick story that I always love telling about Harold is I went to high school with his son. And I didn't realize that when I first met him, because I moved into Burlington and I heard about this gentleman who worked for Reamer and Bronstein, and we were going to go do these events, and I sat next to him at a meeting, and I said to him, "What's your last name?" And he said, "DuLong." And I said, "Oh, do you have a son, Ben?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, not really thinking that then he would realize the age difference, I said, "I went to high school with him." And he kind of made like a little face at me. And he said, well, that makes me really old. And I said, no, or it makes you a really young father. And he kind of smirked. Lorraine, who used to work for him, was sitting next to him. He kind of nudged her and he said, I'm going to like her. So he always had a good way. And I just ooze with pride every year at this because I think he would love it. And I thank you all for being here on behalf of the Chamber, on behalf of the Board of Directors. My co-chair, Bob Buckley, and his team. There's Mark Vaughn is here, Dennis McCarron is here, Melissa Cushing is here. Am I missing someone from Reamer? Oh, I'm sorry, Sue Davis is here. And I can't thank you guys enough because the benevolence that Harold showed hasn't stopped because as generous as he was, the firm is generous. The firm is consistently generous. The firm cares not just about their projects, but about the community. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Really from the bottom of the students' hearts, I guess. Sometimes people don't know what they have coming to them. You know, they don't know where it's coming from, so we want to just always make sure we know that this community is quite fortunate. Speaking of good fortune, I have the great fortune of introducing our speaker. Now, when you say the last name Polar, I know that a lot of people think of the children Polar, the kids, the Polars. When you say the last name Polar, to me, that's not what I think of. I immediately think of Bill and Eileen Polar. That is my touch to that name. I have had the good fortune of being with them socially. I've had the good fortune of serving town meeting and seeing Bill Polar. By the way, his daughter's not funny by accident. You know, he can stand up and tell a good joke like anybody else, and so can Eileen. And I really walked away from them one day saying, this is quite the family, because when I talked to Bill and asked him if he would do this, he really, you know, it took him a little while to answer me back, and I knew he answered it because Facebook always tells you when someone reads something. And I thought, damn, he read it and he's not answering me. So I waited a little while, and sure enough, he came back and said, okay. And what I really love about them is there's a modesty there. There's, you know, they are heartfelt in what they do. Eileen, you know, working for the Burlington School Department for so many years, and it's just I walk away in awe every time I talk to them because, you know, they're not there to strut their stuff on what they've done or what their children have done. It's really a great thing, and his modesty showed through on the last thing. And the other day I said to him, Bill, do you have a bio you want me to read about you? And, well, I'll go back one more. I said to him, Bill, you can talk 15, 20 minutes. And he said, 20 minutes? What do they want to hear me speak 20 minutes for? So it's really sweet because it's, you know, I'm thrilled to hear him talk, but I asked him if there was a bio that he wanted me to read about him, and he said, I don't need a bio, I'm going to talk about it myself. And that's great, because we all know that sometimes people give us this, you know, you say, give me a bio, and then you're like, sir, I don't have an hour to read all of that. But this is great, because Bill is going to come up and tell you his story and tell you his family story, and we're thrilled to have him. Please join me in welcoming Bill Polar.
I was told to be close to the mic, so I'll try. It's rather intimidating coming up here after hearing several professional speakers, but I'll try. Thank you for the honor of speaking at the Harold DuLong Scholarship Luncheon. I want to thank Sonia, who asked me to speak. You know Sonia. She's like Elvis or Cher. She is just known by her first name. My name is Bill Polar, and I've lived in Burlington for 43 years. I taught in Boston for 11 years. I taught during the 70s when there was busing in Boston, and I taught in Roxbury and South Boston. So you can imagine it was quite a time then. Then I went on to financial services. My wife, Eileen, could you wave to the crowd? She was a school teacher here for 26 years. And because this is a scholarship luncheon, I'll mention her scholarship in Burlington. Back in the 80s, when Northeastern had a campus here, Northeastern and Burlington got together and they gave out some scholarships to teachers. And Eileen got one of those, and she went
and got her master's with that scholarship. So that was really nice. And she was in her 40s then, and I'm very proud of her. We have 2 children, Amy and Greg. And this is Amy's book. She's actually sold almost 2 million books. So it's pretty good. And I'll read something on the back about Amy. It says, Amy Poehler is a writer, actress, producer, and director who is known for her years on Saturday Night Live. Her starring role as Leslie Knope on the beloved series Parks and Recreation, as the voice of joy in the Pixar movie Inside Out, and for being 3rd runner-up at the Burlington High School for most casual in her high school yearbook. And then, if you indulge me, I want to read a short paragraph here. In fact, this is a picture of our house back in 1974, right here. Relax, Sonia. We're still there. We're not selling. This is what Amy had to say. My parents still live in the house we moved into when I was 5. In my old bedroom are the dried flowers from the prom and a street sign I stole when I hung around with some bad kids for a few months. I love school. I love new shoes and lunch boxes and sharp pencils. I would hold dance contests in tiny finished basements with my friends. I roller skated in my driveway and walked home from the bus stop all on my own. We never locked our doors. I had a younger brother whom I loved and also liked. I thought my mother was the most beautiful mother in the world. And my father was a superhero who would always protect me. I wish this feeling for every child on earth. This is not just about us. It describes Burlington, a community for growing and learning, a supportive and nurturing environment. I grew up in a nurturing community also, Hamilton, Massachusetts. Anyone hear of Hamilton here? It's a small North Shore town with about 5,000 people in it. I was born in Waynesboro, Virginia, and my name when I was born was William Grinstead Skillman, Jr. After a very short time, I was put into foster care. After 5 years at foster care, I was adopted by a loving couple from Hamilton, Carl and Anna Poehler, and I happened to join a very loving family. Growing up in Hamilton was great. I didn't realize I was surrounded by rich kids back then. It took me until I left Hamilton and looked back at the yearbook, and then I realized with names like Malcolm Worthington IV and Oliver Thursgood that I was surrounded by rich kids back then. Fortunately, I got into the game of basketball, and I was really good at it. I used to be 6'6". Thank you, because I had written down here, pause for laughter. I got through school and was offered a full scholarship to Boston State College. I chose Boston State because I was in honor of a coach, Coach Jim Lesketoff. Not all of you here will remember him, but he played for the Celtics, and his Jungle Jim. And if you go to the arena now, you look up at the banner, you'll see a bunch of retired names. And there's one box there that just says Lusky, and that's him. And they did that because they had given out his number after he left. I also remember laying in bed when I was a kid, and I'm really speaking to people over 60, I think, here now. But I'd be laying in bed, and I'd make a schedule up, and I'd listen to the transistor radio with the Celtics, and I'd have names down like Bill Russell and Tom Heinsohn and Satch Sanders, Sam Jones, Bob Cousy, and then off the bench would come Jim Lesketoff and John Havlicek. And I have fond memories of when they played Wilt Chamberlain because I would keep score on the sheet of paper with X's and for 2 points, and I'd put an O down for a free throw, and if they missed it, I would leave it open. I wouldn't fill it in. So at the end of the games, usually the Celtics won those games, and there'd be a whole row of X's with Wilt Chamberlain, and then there'd be a whole row of just zeros without them being filled in because he wasn't a good free throw shooter. And the Celtics won most of those games. A story that I have my freshman year is that we made a tournament called the NAIA tournament. We went out to Kansas City. We were one of 32 teams representing the country. We represented the Northeast. The night before we played, there were 32 banquet tables, huge tables, and each team had one table. And they went one by one, introducing all the teams, and they'd stand up. We were number 32. So by the time it came to us, Lusky said, Bill and Stevie, we were the two short guys on the team, why don't you stand on the chairs? Of which we did. We stood on the chairs and we looked like we were 7'3", and there was a big ooh amongst the crowd. And that lasted 3 or 4 seconds, and then there was quite a bit of laughter after that. By the way, I was fortunate enough to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, but now it was UMass of Boston because Boston State was eaten up by UMass. One for the team that I went out to in Kansas City, and the other one was an individual one for the 4 years I was at Boston State. My biggest prize, though, was meeting my wife, Eileen. She was a captain of the cheerleaders, and I was the captain of the basketball team. And it was just a Hallmark movie back then. Today, we often run into her old students at restaurants and bars. They'd come up to her and they'd say, oh, Mrs. Poehler, you were so good. You were my favorite teacher. And then they might tell a story or two, how kind she was to them. It was really nice. And I know she likes that, and I'm very proud of that. One of the stories I want to tell you about that was she told Greg, Amy, and myself a story about one of her girls in school asked her advice on whether she should get a little red rose on the lower back. And Eileen said, oh, just, do whatever you want to do, but just remember, when you get older, it's going to be lower and it's going to turn into a bouquet. If anyone, and then, to our amazement, we watched every Saturday Night Live show when Amy was on. And lo and behold, we're watching it at 1 o'clock at night. And up comes that skit on TV. Amy's playing the woman who has the tattoo and the bouquet. And if anyone wants to look that up, it's really a good skit. You can look up on YouTube, Dr. Turlington Tattoo Removal Lower Back and Amy Poehler. You'll find that skit. It's very funny. Enough about us. Amy graduated in 1989. She was the secretary of her class. She had the lead in the senior play, Once Upon a Mattress. We went to that show, and we thought she was fantastic on the stage. She just had stage presence back then, and she sang, and we were just amazed. But in her book, she talks about in the 4th grade at the Wildwood School, she was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. And the scene was the very last scene where she's clicking her heels and there's no place like home. And in practice, they had a live little dog, Toto. And the dog was very calm. But during the play, in front of all the parents, the dog jumped out of her hands before she said anything. And Amy ad-libbed at that time. And she got a great laugh. And she looks back at that and says, I really enjoyed that laugh. I knew they weren't laughing at me. They were just laughing with me. So that was fun. She got several scholarships from BC, Boston College, from people like yourselves. She majored in communications. She was a member of My Mother's Flea Bag at Boston College. It's the oldest college improv group in the United States. Eileen and I would go to all her shows, and afterwards we say things like, oh, isn't this great? It's so funny. she's becoming confident. Isn't this a great hobby? And then graduation came, and we're sitting at our kitchen table. And like all parents do, we say, okay, honey, what are you going to do now? And she looks at us and she says, well, I think I'm going to continue with this comedy thing out in Chicago. And Eileen and I, again, like all parents would do, we said, honey, do whatever makes you feel comfortable or what you want to do. And Eileen and I got up, walked into our living room, and we looked at each other. And I broke the silence and I said, what the hell? $80,000 down the tubes. Back then, it was only $20,000 a year to go to Boston College, not anymore. And Eileen said, can she make any money at that? So she did move out to Chicago, and that's where she met Tina Fey in Second City. And we would go out there with Eileen's mother, and we'd be 3 out of about 15 people in the audience with all these empty seats in the improv group. And we'd look at each other and we'd say, these kids are so talented, why isn't anyone coming out now? And then go forward 15, 20 years, and a couple months ago, there were 4,500 people from Northeastern who showed up in the hockey arena just to hear Amy speak. And I can think back of the 15 people to the 4,500 people. Then they formed a group called the UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade. It's an improv group where they teach improv comedy. They actually have 4 theaters now. They have 2 in New York and 2 in LA. And if anyone thinks they're funny, I think I can get you a scholarship at the school there. You can start your career. Then she got on SNL in 2001. And you all remember 9/11, 2001. This was the first live show several weeks after 9/11. And some of you probably also remember that it was very emotional. We were there, Eileen and I were there in the audience, and they had all the firemen up on the stage, and they had some rescue workers and police, and they did the show. It went on rather well. Amy was in a skit for 12 seconds, and then the following week she was in all kinds of skits, but the one that we were at, she was in for 12 seconds. But those are great memories back then. Then, 3 years later, Lorne Michaels asked her to do Weekend Update with Tina Fey. And he said to her back then, Amy, things are going to change in your life now, because on Weekend Update, we mention your name. And that's the difference of being a regular cast member to mentioning your name. And sure enough, things have changed. Eileen and I met dozens and dozens of celebrities back then, and Eileen had me cross off a few of those stories, but we met some hosts like Matt Damon, Donald Trump, and someone on Eileen's bucket list, Sir Paul McCartney. That was just this past year. And the greatest of all time football player, Tom Brady. Then she had a long-running series, Parks and Recreation. I do want to say that none of the characters were based on the oddball characters that were on that show to the Burlington Recreation Department. Currently, she's behind the scenes directing Broad City, Difficult People on TV, and she has a new show that we hope comes out where she's directing Carol Burnett on ABC. That's called Household Names. That hopefully it will be picked up. There's also a movie coming out June 30th called House, in which she's married to Will Ferrell, and they lose their daughter's college fund and playing at a casino. And so what do you normally do? You put a casino in your own basement to get that money back. That should be pretty funny. And she's also has a reality show coming out where she's a judge on a show with Nick Offerman about working with your hands in projects. It's a combination of Project Runway and a couple of those other reality shows. I think that's going to be big. And she got an Emmy last year. And for a while, I was calling her a loser because she had 9 nominations and she hadn't had a win yet. But last year, she won. And she also got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which Eileen and I went out to, and that was cool because it was where the star was. And if anyone ever goes out there, just look for the Wax Museum, the entrance to the Wax Museum, and her star's right outside that door. What was fun was that it was open to the public, so hundreds of people gathered around when she started talking and gave the presentation. She's got 2 sons, and they go to a public school, UCLA Campus School, which is a fabulous school, and it's just celebrating their 135th anniversary. And I just saw on the web last night that Amy was a presenter there, or that she was the host of that. So that's kind of cool. Now, Greg, my son, he also played, he played basketball, tennis, soccer, golf at Burlington High School. He also received scholarships to Boston College, very similar to the ones that you give out here. He was a math major. He took a year off and graduated and lived, after he graduated, he took a year off and he lived in California. He went to Fordham Law School and he worked in New York for Penny and Edmonds, where he met a Swedish lawyer who became his wife. They moved to Sweden. And many years later, when he was 40 or 41, he sat in his house and he told me that he looked back and he wanted to go into the movies or TV. And he didn't do it way back when, because when he was at Fordham College, he would be a bartender at Amy's improv group. And he would see people like Tina Fey and Amy and Steve Carell and Horatio Sands and Rachel Dratch up on the stage. And he was saying to himself, gee, I can't do that. But he wanted to. So it took him to the age of 40 to finally step out of being an attorney. And he wrote a script. It got picked up in Sweden. And it was the #2 show in Sweden called Welcome to Sweden. It was a huge success. And Amy had a few of her friends come on as cameos, like Will Ferrell and Aubrey Plaza and a bunch of other people. Then NBC picked it up over here. So it ran for a year and a half on NBC, which we were so happy about, and then it got canceled. Eileen and I say that it got canceled because of the subtitles underneath. So, but right after that, he got a job on DirecTV, and he's in a TV show called, You, Me, Her. And it's into the 3rd season now, and he stars in it, and it's fabulous. Does anyone have DirecTV here? Yeah, there's one. Look that up. Our children are just 2 examples of the thousands of Burlington students who have had the opportunity to thrive with excellent teachers and administrators, guidance, a wide range of courses, individualized instruction, parental involvement, and a variety of scholarship providers like the Burlington High School Scholarship Fund, which includes private individuals and family funding, the Burlington Community Scholarship Foundation, and of course the Harold DuLong Scholarship Fund. Sorry. Burlington is a generous community, welcoming and encouraging business participation, except for the traffic. Most of us are happy to see how the town has grown. Your scholarship contributions are much appreciated. Even the smallest gift can open a door and provide an opportunity beyond a student's wildest dreams. Thank you all. Are you gonna auction that off?
Thank you very much, Bill. Well, I lost the bet, Bob. I said we were finally going to get through a conversation without hearing about traffic. The pollers have been generous enough to give us a autographed copy of Amy's book. And if any of you have kids who are in school these days, you know what the costs of them buying books at colleges are. So we're going to take this moment to auction this book off. Again, 100% of the proceeds will go to the DuLong Scholarship Fund, go right through to a graduating senior. Can we start at $100? We got $100 up front. Here we go. $150. $200. Anyone wants to stop this, just yell out $500 and we're done. $250? We got $250. We've got $250 back at Don Tachi. $275. $275 to Sonia. $275 once. $275 twice. It's for the children, Don Tachi for $300. We're up to $300. You can get me right off this floor if we just bid this to $5 right now. $325. $300 going once. $300 going twice. Thank you, Don Tachi. $300. Again, without the generosity of the people in this room and the people in the greater Burlington area, the school system wouldn't be able to flourish as it does. Eric Conti couldn't be with us today. He had signed up, but again, something about running the Burlington Public School System runs into hours and time. And one of the greatest things I learned from him many years ago, one of my children was in middle school, and it was at some award ceremony, and he said, "Congratulations, you did a lot of hard work to get to this point in life." And we all know what the reward for hard work is. I'm sure you guys have heard it on a regular basis from Dr. Conti. The reward for hard work is more hard work. The Chamber has come a long way. In the past few years, we've really tried to get re-energized and connect with people on all levels through economic development, working on issues of transportation, workforce development, trying to find the balance between the small businesses and the large businesses, but to continue to be an economic engine that in turn helps support our community. We can't do it without you. We appreciate everyone who joins us in the Chamber. We appreciate when you come to events like this. Please help us spread the word. There's plenty of room at the table. We thank everyone who's been involved, and we look forward to growing the Chamber even further than it's gone, and we look forward to having events like this in the future. On May 15th, we have an event, a golf tournament. We still have, I think there's 4 foursomes still there. If you haven't had an opportunity to get involved with the golf tournament, it's a great event. We will be raising money there again, and Don Tachi, who was generous here, we're funding his charity. Thank you. The UDT SEAL Association. For those who don't know, Don was a teacher also at Burlington. After he retired, he remained active in Burlington, in the Burlington Rotary, giving back to the community, and now he's giving back to his fellow SEALs. So please try to join us on May 15th if you can. Keep an eye out on the newsletters. There's plenty going on. We thank you for coming out today. We thank you for your generosity.
Folks, thank you all for coming. There is coffee and desserts in the back. I would be remiss to not say go get that because it's fantastic and Londana's does a great job. Thank you again for everybody coming. And while you're all walking away, Rick is so great about thanking others. A round of applause for the president of the Chamber, Rick Parker. I'm getting to it. And of course,
Excuse me. I want to thank 2 people in this room
I was going to do
that have, it should be probably getting hazardous pay, the 2 people that work with me all day long, Janet Pucheri and Katie O'Connor. Thank you very much.
Before I was interrupted, I was going to thank them. But anyway, thanks, guys. Please go get some dessert. Thank you. We'll see you all next year. Thanks.